Are you going to go right? Good.
She can. Hang it
I think, Jackie, if it's only this full, we can do the speeches in here.
No, it will be much fuller than this time. Remember, there's loads more people coming. All the crowds around the hall at the moment.
Right, don't want to say a few words. This is my party. You can cry if you want to. This is one of my colleagues.
I'm the coat
He's wonderful.
check
He's Dorothy coming from over there.
Now, do you want to put that somewhere?
I'll just take this pass off. Dorothy! Dorothy! Come and be on the movie with me. This is me, Dorothy. Dorothy's a union woman.
I'm a good union woman.
Yeah.
Tom's ghost will be with us for a long time.
I want to welcome Liz tonight. Where is Liz? All Tom's friends here tonight, you're very welcome, and all the staff, and also Mitcham and Morden Labour Party. They came because they brought him a present. And also his MP's here somewhere.
He's gone. I'm gone, how dare you? I mean, gone when I'm gone.
He just wanted to sort Tom out the extra time that he's going to have. Apparently he's got a little membership round. Really, kind of what I want to say is that Tom, for me, was, one of the few people that really understood how much we had to do, how much we had to change, the great journey that we had to make to get the great victory that we did last year. And he understood that both organisationally and politically. I remember when Tom started as General Secretary of the Labour Party, and one of the first things he introduced was the Investors in People, which we latterly won. And he always said that the development of staff and encouraging people was the best bit about that job. He also practised his politics, and he was great at encouraging many of us in the party on to try and do as much as we possibly could. Particularly, I think, and I can say this, I think, that he was particularly encouraging to all women staff. Everyone says, and particularly in the role that I have, you must have had to fight against a lot of discrimination. Now, I'm not letting you into a secret by saying that occasionally did happen, but also there are a lot of people around that have shown me great kindness and encouraged me, and I think that I have to say that Tom is at the front of that list, as he is for many of us. He also is good, I think, at not trying to make us all conform to a stereotype, but allowing us to be ourselves. He has now given us a system and a structure and an inclusive way of working that we can really go on and make this victory work. But lastly, I said at the beginning, Tom was one of the few people around that really understood how long that journey was. And I think everyone here would agree with me tonight. One of those people that shared every step of that journey with him was his great friend, Neil Kinnock. Yeah.
Margaret, I'm glad that the future of the party is in the hands of a risk-taking soul. The idea that you should provide me with a couple of glasses of wine, a pulpit, and locked doors is a demonstration of faith that everybody cares. I got just one thing to say to the former General Secretary of the Labour Party. Share a shot. Great melon, getting horse. Wasn't that wonderful, that load of old bullshit that he talked in the Labour Party Congress? It was wonderful. As I watched it, you know, I was thinking of another Friday when the party was in quite a celebratory mood. And Roy Hammersley and I were standing together, holding hands. You can tell how long ago it was. We are the champions. Hammersley says, "It's just your fucking idea." In a lordly sort of way. I took over to you. But it wasn't like that this time. Not at all. You had somebody getting up and doing a John Wayne impersonation instead. But that was a magnificent speech. And people said, "Didn't Tom Sawyer speak well?" I've always known that with a little bit of practice. Only one flaw in this man's rhetorical skills. For him, the word away has still got 3 syllables. Hawia! When people say sometimes of a generation of which Tom is a part, that we spent rather more time convincing the party than convincing the electorate, they seem to forget that we had to bring the party onto the side of change before we could reach out to the electorate. And this was the huge subscription that Tom Sawyer and a few like him made to the triumph of 1997. And I'm proud that they're my comrades. And I'm proud that they were my comrades then. And I'm proud to call them my dear friends now. It hasn't been without some sacrifice. For instance, there was one occasion, I shall never forget it, when I probably made more of a sacrifice to solidarity and the spirit of progress in this party than I've made on any other occasion. It was when I kissed Tom Sawyer before 13 million people. Things I've done for this party. Now there are people here, most of them female, who have shared this experience with me. It's not pleasant. I can tell you from personal experience, Yasser Arafat is an old softie by comparison. By comparison with Lawrence Sawyer, as I shall insist on calling him for the rest of my life. I tell you, it is an arduous experience. But here is a rock of a man. I've been fortunate to know a few others, men and women of real courage, of real toughness in my life. And what's always characteristic of them is they never talk about being tough. They never say how tough they are. But you know that there is running under their skin solid steel. And you also know that they believe that what gives them a privilege is their strength, and what then gives them an obligation is to use their strength for the emancipation of those who are not strong. I think that Tom is only part of his way through doing that. He will always do it. Not in the air of publicity, perhaps, although we might do that too. But his commitment to the cause of human freedom and advance is unremitting. That's how it's been for a very long time. That's how it always will be. That's why I love him.
I've got lots of messages, Tom, from people who couldn't be here tonight, including John Prescott, Margaret Prosser, Ian McCartney, and also the West Midlands region, who's saying goodbye to Joe Kane tonight. And they're very sorry that they couldn't be here. But also one from Dennis Skinner, and he says, sorry I can't come to your party tonight. I have a constituency engagement about 150 miles away. Thanks for everything, especially your kind reference to me in your speech on the Friday conference. Good luck for the future, and I'm looking forward to you dismantling the Lords. But, you know, there's one reason we are here tonight to say goodbye to Tom, and it's really down to one man who was able to drag him away from his beloved UP to come to the Labour Party and be General Secretary, and that's Tony Blair. Tony.
It's a pretty difficult act, following Neil. Especially, I'm still getting used to these chairs. I'm just wondering about this. Who's Ted Heath and who's Margaret Thatcher? Look, I wanted to. I think it's the first time I've ever spoken with both Tom and Neil, and people just. From a younger generation, and I can talk like this now, the younger generation just can't understand the voyage and journey that the party had to undergo to come where it is today and be the type of organisation it is today. And without being overly sentimental about it, sometimes people just don't understand what these guys, in particular these two, but actually, as I think Tom would probably recognise above all, had to go through in order for us to be the beneficiaries of what they did. I mean, it is impossible for anyone who didn't live through it at the end of the 70s, early 80s, to just know how bad the situation was. And, I mean, Margaret was, we all have our stories of that period of time, and I've got many of them. In those days, the visits weren't organised in quite the way they are today. I remember when I fought my first by-election, this was May 2 before Neil. But even in those days, I had a sort of feeling that we should try and get the media on side. This was quite revolutionary at the time. And I remember we managed to, Channel 4 News was supposed to follow us around a particular housing estate in Beaconsfield. And I said to the people working in the party at that point, go ahead, find some people, you know, solid, strong Labour supporters, and then we'll beetle up to the doorstep, you know, and I'll be there, and they'll say, and it'll be fine for the television cameras in front. I said, when I came back, I said, I'm blue. He said he's voted Labour all his life. Go up the front door, knock on the door, he opens the door, and I said, hello, I'm Tony Blair, I hope you can support us in this election. He says, I voted Labour all my life. But, as a result of what you people are doing, that was a very familiar scene in those days. And it wasn't just, you see, the ideas of the party that had fallen apart. It was also the organisation that collapsed with it. And when Neil became leader of the party, it just is impossible to know at this stage just how much had to be done. And I remember even at this year's party conference, I was actually talking to a young delegate, and he was joined the Labour Party just a couple of years ago, about 20 years of age. And I was talking to him about the Labour Party and how it had been in those days. And I said, you know, you used to get to the stage where, you know, when Arthur Scargill addressed the conference, I mean, there was a standing ovation. And he said, no. He said, not really, not seriously. I mean, they didn't all get up and applaud that. And I said, yes, no, they did. They literally got up and applauded every single time. It was the one guarantee that you could have as a party delegate, that was what you were going to see. And he said, well, how did it all stop? And I said, well, it actually began to stop 1 year when the leader of the Labour Party, Neil Kinnock, finally got up and told the truth. And then people began to change. But what's impossible to know now, when you look back at it, is how hard it was to do that. And all through that period of time, what was difficult and what was the huge constraint on Neil and indeed Tom and others changing the Labour Party was that you had this Tory government that were trying to destroy mining communities and all the rest of it. And you were faced with this choice where you either stood up and supported what was actually an unacceptable form of the left, but if you didn't support it, you somehow allied yourself with an utterly unacceptable form of the right. And to have had the courage to say there is a different way of doing things and we're going to take this different course, that is so easy to say now, in retrospect, that it was so hard to do at the time. And that process of change began with Militant, with the speech in 1985, because there was not one speech then, there was 2 speeches, because a couple of days after, I think it was a couple of days after the Militant speech was then the Scargill speech. And that was like a cultural change. It was like the nearest, I mean, forgive me, I've just come back from China and I was talking to the mayor of Shanghai about the Cultural Revolution. You weren't imposing the And he was actually telling me about the time he was a professor and he was sent off to the rice field. And how, when that suddenly halted, you know, people then found the courage to come out and express their views and the whole thing changed. Well, I mean, it's a slightly dramatic way of putting it, but it was in the Labour Party, Neil Kinnock, who actually enabled us to say what we really felt. Who removed that ghastly, awful feeling that you had for year and year and year, that you couldn't actually say what you felt and believed, because that was somehow contrary to the received wisdom. Now, Neil needed allies in doing that. And the person that really came along as his key ally in achieving that within the party was Tom. And again, this was hard, because Tom came from strong trade union background, was very much someone on the left, and when he was making the change and came out as the member of the National Executive, not merely backing up Neil, but then actually saying to the party, we have got to do things in a different way. You know, now that we have lost this 87 election, I'm sorry, it's over. We're not saying we don't need to change, we're going to sit down and honestly confront the problems that we have. That, again, was a hugely difficult task, and it required, again, a particular type of courage. And I've never really said this, but I do mean it, that for me coming along as leader of the Labour Party, after what these guys did, it was honestly easy compared with what they did. Easy. Because by then, the whole culture of the party was flowing with the changes that we were making. But to turn that around and make that happen, that was a far, far harder task. And Tom did that. And that policy review was really spearheaded through by him. Now, when I was searching around for the person I thought who should become General Secretary of the party, I naturally thought of Tom, because he had that combination of understanding the Labour Party totally, and having proven that he had the leadership and the courage to take it in the place it needed to be. And I remember Tom and I met for a drink somewhere off Holborn, I think it was. We met for a drink when I was going to put this conversation.
It was the Bollington, and then when we got in the foyer, we saw John Edmonds was there, so we had to shoot out.
Thank you very much, Tom. Look, when you get in the Lords, don't just say what you think out. John. But actually, I remember the conversation very well, because I started off saying to him, and I thought, you know, he's going to be really, really pleased with this. I said, Tom, I'd like you to become General Secretary of the Labour Party. And he sort of, I don't really think it's for me, actually. I said, you know, Tom, I don't think you understand. I really like you to become General Secretary of the Labour Party. And I had to push it quite hard. He is one of the shrewdest people and shrewdest judges of character that I've ever come across. And what he was to me was not just a supporter and someone who ran the Labour Party very well. He was also somebody who gave me good, strong, solid advice all the way through. And as he showed in the speech that he gave at party conference, and actually Neil's quite right, those people who've known Tom for a long time knew he could speak brilliantly, but actually it's probably a few years since he put on a sort of tour de force like that at party conference. But the other side of Tom, that you should know, is when we used to meet privately together, and I think he said this in the course of his speech, he would tell me exactly what he thought, with no ornaments about it at all. But it was always good, shrewd advice about the party, about people in the party, about how to play it, about how to move forward. And just as Neil found him an ally who was absolutely invaluable, I found him the same. And in the little thing that we've got for you, Tom, you're going to get some presents. You know, Neil called you a good comrade, and I call you a good comrade as well. It's, as I think I said when we were at a party conference, the term comrade's often been a term of abuse within the Labour Party. But actually, when it's used properly, it's used about someone who's more than a friend. He's someone who stood shoulder to shoulder with you and never ever let you down. And that is Tom Sawyer. And that is why I love him too. And I'm pleased to be here tonight.
All I've got left to do is to give him his presents and to ask him to come and speak, and I love him too.
Okay, thank you. Well, obviously, as it would be for you if you were here, it's quite a humbling experience to have the two, you know, probably the two greatest living politicians in the little party be so generous about you and the work you've done for the party. And all the time they were speaking, I wanted to say, first of all, that tonight is a night for people who work for the party, NEC colleagues, trade union colleagues. It isn't a night for politicians, it's a night for the people who work for the party, and it's a night for you. If I can in any way reflect any of that generosity on the people in this room, and I'd very much like to do so. So we win the election, and we all make in our various guises our first visit to number 10. And this is quite a moment for everyone. I mean, I'm sure you know this, and I'm sure Sally and Tony, you tell everybody this, and you make them really welcome. You know, you make it nice for party members because they do like to come to number 10. And I was no different. And I always liked the Shadow Cabinet office in the House of Commons. I liked it when Neil was there, when you were there. It was a small, very, very small office. It was very friendly when Jan and Neil were there, and after that, yourself and Angie and Kate and all the gang. You could walk in, you could either make yourself a cup of tea or somebody would make you a cup of tea, and you felt very relaxed. It was a very, very nice, relaxed, informed place. And tea, of course, is very important in the Labour Party culture. You could go back, what you were doing in the morning, despite the fact I've told them I'm going to stand there and stop you. And she got the job. But, so, you know, it's kind of a tea culture, isn't it? We all like a cup of tea. So I would go in there and make a cup of tea, talk to people, Neil or Tony ready for the business, and on we went. When you first go to number 10, of course, the guy lets you in at the door, he asks you for your name, tells you who you are, then he gets someone to come from the end of the corridor to pick you up. The person walks you down the corridor, get in the corridor, turn your left, say, there you are, Mr. Sawyer, Mr. Blair, the Prime Minister, as they say, I think number 10 is there. And there he was, sat on a sofa in his little room. No tea. No Angie. No Kate, nobody, just me on my own. Yeah. So I thought, well, this is a bit odd, isn't it? Anyway, he started asking all these questions about the ship, was it going up? And I wasn't really that interested. said, and listen, sorry, she said, now when you go and find out what colour's the car. So you've got to find all these things out to tell your family about number 10. And I was thinking membership. Anyway, I thought, well, I'll forgive this, but when do I get the tea? Anyway, all of a sudden, I mean, Steve and I, Jonathan Powell opened the door and he said to Tony, the tea shop is on the phone. The tea shop? This is me, you've got to get used to it. I said, really? I just private tea. So let me get my dog there. There was no tea. So, and of course, you've all got the job. We walked out the door, Jonathan said to me, are you finished with Tony? Tom said, yeah. He said, that's just because the Irish Prime Minister's took me trying to that made me laugh. Because I didn't think he said the tea shop. Now you know why. I've actually that joke goes down with businessmen really, really well. Because they don't know the tea shop is, you see. So anyway, that's, I'd like to thank you, Tony, for all your kind words and your friendship. And the encouragement to me, really. I mean, to persuade a man or a woman to become the leader of the Labour Party is a big thing. And I was only reluctant because I've seen what hell of a time I would get at. I didn't know that I really wanted to repeat it, but Tony said to me, do it in your own way. Do it in your own way and do it differently. And take your strengths and do the things that you can do well. And build a team around you of people who can complement what you can do and therefore achieve the results that we want. And that's what I did. And I'd like to thank you, Tony, for your support, your encouragement, your leadership and your friendship as well. Thank you very much, Tony. Is to you, which is where I started really. I'd like to thank you. My colleagues on the NEC who've turned up tonight, some of the politicians who've been able to turn up, the people who sent the messages. It is true, I hope you all know this, I really sincerely believe that only good teams win. I don't think, you can find certain qualities in an individual, but very, very rarely in any individual can you find all the qualities you need to be successful. It's almost impossible. So you always find something in one individual which is important, but then you've got to find other people who will complement that and bring new skills and new ideas and new strengths to the team. And that's what we try to do in the Labour Party. We try to build a team. We didn't just try to build a team at the top, we tried to build a team right out to all the levels of the party. That's why we went to invest in people. That's why I passionately believe in staff training and development, because I think really winning elections and delivering what needs to be delivered, it does need strong professional politicians, but it also needs a strong professional party machine, and that's what I've tried to help to produce. So thank you all for being here tonight. Thank you for the years of friendship and comradeship. Margaret, last word about you. I do wish you all the very best. It is a tough job, but as you know, in my opinion, there's no other person that ever party better suited to do that job than you. When I ended the party conference speech, I actually said, the credits ruled and it stays at the end, and so it is goodbye. And I wish I'd said, and so it is adios amigo.
I'd like us all to join Tom in a drink outside. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anything to follow him here. Really. It's not easy.
I tell you what, coming before you is a bloody sight easier than following me. No, it didn't! Shit, no, it didn't! It's the other way around. Great.
Thanks for coming.
time for masochists. Oh, no.